I'll introduce myself later, let me introduce my NAS. Yeah, no, this isn't it. This is it. It's my former PC that got upgraded to an i7-7700 CPU, 16 gigs of RAM and 12 terabytes of storage in the form of 8 2TB hard drives. This isn't even the best part is the software making this thing amazing, Unraid. Despite being a huge fan and supporter of FOSS solutions, Unraid isn't actually free or open source. It is, however, pretty darn good at what it's supposed to do and quite a bit more than that. Visiting their website, you'll find out they describe the software as a powerful, easy-to-use operating system for self-hosted servers and network-attached storage, which basically hits home as to the actual capabilities of Unraid as well as my experience in the past year. Before I go on to detailing my setup, hey, feel free to subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. I'm starting to put out more tech-oriented videos and your support keeps me going. Please do comment with stuff you'd like to see here. Thanks! Now on to the setup. We're running 8 2TB hard drives, which in my dual parity array translates to 8 TB of reliable protected storage. We're also running a Samsung 500GB SSD drive for caching whatever before being written to the actual protected array. A special note here, this is unsafe and anything on the SSD could be lost if it doesn't get written to the array. Ideally you'd have a pool here. Note that we don't actually install Unraid on any of the data drives. Unraid runs off of a USB drive, which is risky but can also be quickly reflashed in case of failure. Unraid offers a cloud backup that you can download and flash whenever shit hits the fan. I've went through that process and it went excellent. On the power side, I'm running a normal PSU, but I've added an APC Smart UPS as a backup as well as a graceful shutdown enforcer. Unraid is based on Slackware, so in the end you can install whatever you might need, and APC UPSD is a thing, so I've done a few settings to be sure that the array stops in a nice manner if power ever goes down for longer than a few minutes. So about the array that I keep mentioning, Unraid has a few modes in which it can operate storage. The first one is the parity protected array based on XFS or BTRFS. This is the easiest way forward and most recommended one for most people. It's easily expandable, has great power efficiency, and logically it's the easiest to understand. You'll have a maximum of 2 parity drives and a maximum of 28 data drives, and the rule goes that each parity drive will protect you against one data drive going bad. Having a dual parity setup like mine should ensure me that I can sustain a failure of one drive with no data loss, then rebuild a new drive while still being protected for another failure. This is one of the reasons for which I already have a physically installed drive in the NAS that's not actually wired up yet. Whenever a drive will fill, it will be a very quick and easy fix. The second option would be going for a full ZFS pool. We're not doing parity drives here and are fully relying on ZFS's magic, which unlike the parity drive setup includes self-healing for bit rot, data compression and snapshots apart from the higher throughput inherent with using all of the disks at once. The downsides of this setup, which might not apply to everyone, are mainly the increased resource usage, the fact that ZFS is dark magic, and the website does list increased power consumption, which I guess is to be expected when bringing into mind the higher throughput I've talked about a bit earlier. I've put a link in the description if you'd like to read more about ZFS from the great folks at Ars Technica. The last one is a mix of sorts, in which we don't actually use a pool but use ZFS drives in an array. But we're not getting the best of both worlds, self-healing is not available, throughput is the same as a normal parity drive setup, and the resource usage is still up. We're winning though on power consumption, and we do get data compression and snapshots, which might just be worth the hassle. I would still recommend going for the parity drive setup as it's the simplest one, and KISS is one of the best things in life, especially when dealing with your life savings in terms of data. The thing is, and a lot of people skip this step, you're not protected against catastrophic damage. Think fires, water damage, lighting straight into an HDD. This is where offsites come into play, and as the responsible SRE I am, I'm using Backblaze in a not fully sanctioned way to constantly back up everything into the cloud so I can sleep sound knowing my data is actually safe regardless of the status of the drives or the server. Let's move to actual usage. This is a NAS, so of course we can create users and shares with all of the combinations you can imagine in regards to permissions, protocols, and so on. I'm using quite a few devices for my day-to-day, a MacBook, a Linux laptop, and a Windows workstation apart from multiple other Linux devices. All of them should and do have no fuss access to any of my private shares as well as the public ones. In terms of speed, I think I'm more limited by the networking setup, cable quality, and other things, since I can pretty much get 110 megabytes per second on the regular between the Windows box and Unraid. I am planning, however, on letting my autism get the best of me and moving towards a fiber setup between Unraid and the Switch, despite it not helping that much given the limitations of HDD speeds, but we're future-proofing here, people. The Unraid UI is pretty nice. You can get a very good glance at the health of the whole system by going to the homepage, and you've also got a nice albeit basic alert view to see if anything went wrong while you were away. One of the things you can see here is a parity check. This is how Unraid ensures your drives are in perfect order. This should ideally run at least once a month, but if you're very mindful of reads writes on your hard drives, you can go with higher values as long as you're green, you're good. Still at a glance away is your usage of storage as well as a smart drive status table for that extra peace of mind seeing more green thumbs up. Now onto the cooler parts than reliable storage. This thing can run Docker, and not as in you can drop into a terminal, despite that also being an option, but it treats Docker containers as a first-class citizen, as well with their apps, which is a nice word for XML templates that define the location of Docker images as well as different settings for them. I'm currently running quite a few Docker containers, jellyfin for my media needs, PostgreSQL, Pi-hole, Backblaze, Calibre, and so on. The best part is, if something isn't already made into an app, you can enable developer mode easily and create your own, like I did for the OpenWebRx software that I use with my RTL TCP setup. You can get all of the normal good Docker goodies like mounts, network ports, different networks altogether, and so on. You do get a nice prompt to update them all at once whenever needed, so it's taking quite a bit of work from maintaining a large number of self-hosted apps. One cool part of Docker support is that you can actually pin CPUs for specific apps, so if you've got a known resource hog, for example, you can ensure you'll always dedicate a certain amount of cores to it. The apps tab will have a ton of interesting containers you could run, and I found quite a bit of software that I did not know about that I ended up using in my day-to-day. There's also a plugin system. Plugins mostly add to the Unraid experience. You can easily tell that since my added plugins are unbalanced, which helps balance drives. This is usually done automatically, but I screwed up on my initial setup. Prometheus because metrics, as well as a plugin that will display temperatures on the homepage. So yeah, this is my current NAS setup and I'm really happy with it 1 year later. I've had so many drives from many years ago that were just waiting to die, and now everything is safe and protected, and I'm all the calmer for it. If you want to find out more, I suggest you give Unraid.net a visit and check them out if you're in the market for a NAS with an inclination to tinkering, but just a bit. Expect this sort of videos on this channel. I've got 100 tech related interests and I decided I'll make videos of them all. Thank you.